Poached eggs?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm. 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 Oh. Mm. 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 Oh, this is so good. I can't wait to see what you guys do next week. For Mother's Day?
Welcome again to Silver Creek Church. I'm really glad you joined us today. If this is your first time, I want to say welcome. Thank you for checking us out here at Silver Creek Church. And if you've been watching us for a few weeks now, or kind of wherever you're at in the world, or in Michigan, or whatever place you're watching us from, I want to say welcome and thank you for joining us. You know, Silver Creek Church, we are all about people. We understand, we recognize that our God, our creative God, created each person uniquely. And we're all created in a different way. And we love that. We celebrate that. It doesn't matter what political platform you stand on. It doesn't matter where you come from. We all come together under one banner. And that banner is this. We want to make a difference in the world that we live in. We want to make a positive difference. We're tired of seeing the negativity in the world around us. We want to make a positive change and try to bring the world together. And so at Silver Creek Church, that's really what we're about. And we're really glad that you've decided to watch us and join us today. We really look forward to meeting together in person again in the future. And we hope you can join us for that too. Now, if you're just tuning in, you'll know that we're in Breathing Room series today. And we've been in Breathing Room series for a little while now. And if you've missed any of the previous episodes of that, you can check them out on our website. Or you can go into the YouTube channel that you're probably watching through right now, and you'll see the previous episodes there. But we're in part 3 of Breathing Room. And in Breathing Room, we have a little definition for that. In a breathing room, it's about the space between our current pace and our limits. You see, breathing room basically is the margin between our current pace, or the way that we're living our life, our habits, our schedules, all the different things we're trying to accomplish. And the other side of that is our limits, our breaking point at times. And we've been saying throughout the whole series that life is better with breathing room. And it's okay for your closet to look like this. You know, we've been talking about these closets. You've got one all nice and cluttered. And there's some of you out there probably looking at this right now going, I wish I could just get in there and fix that. Let me just have a few minutes to fix that. And then you look over here and it's all in its place. Everything's got its place and it's neat and it's organized. And in life, we're not doing a message talking about you have to be one way or the other. We recognize everybody's different. But in your life, if your life looks like this, it's not okay. It's okay for your closet or for your garage or for your basement to have too much stuff and be cluttered. That's one thing. But in your life, it's a whole nother thing together. And so I want the best life I can possibly have. And I think you do too. And inadvertently, we cram as much as we can to achieve that into our life. And we keep cramming so much that eventually there's just no more space and there's no more breathing room in our life. And so today, as we're in part 3, we're diving into the idea of financial and breathing room in our finances. We're going to talk about money. And so before you clench up and go, oh, wait a second, and turn off your computer or walk away from the TV, don't leave, because this is not an ask. This is not where I'm going to tell you, hey, we've got a new big goal. You know, we're raising money with a thermometer on the wall or something. That's not happening. I'm not going to send you an email or a letter this week asking you for money for something. That's not what this is. This message is not an ask. This message is not that at all. I don't want anything from you. What this message is about there's something I want for you. And God does too. And to understand better how money affects our breathing room, we have to talk about time. Because money and time kind of go together. Our time is limited. Your time's limited, my time's limited. We only have so much time in every day. At one point every day, we all reach the place where we say, it's done. My day is done. It's enough. I'm going to bed now. Some of us may be later than others, but we all reach that place where it's enough. We're going to bed. The day's done. I've reached my limit. And money is limited. I mean, money doesn't fall from the sky. How nice would it be if money fell from the sky? Each morning you walked out and just gathered up what you thought you needed for today. Oh, thank you, lovey. I think I'll take some more. And that's really nice, but it's not like that. Not at all. Money doesn't grow on trees. You've probably heard that your whole life like I did. Money doesn't grow on trees, you know. But with the invention of modern day economics, it's kind of brought some scary parameters into this whole financial thing for us, especially here in America. You don't really have to limit what you do with your money. And in this, with our finances, oftentimes we feel like this. We feel like we're cramming so much in. With every dollar I've got, I spend it. And there's so much, there's nothing left over. And if we try to cram one more thing in, it's going to all just fall apart. And the difference is this: your time is limited, so you have to limit your time. And it limits what you do with your time. But with your money's limited, but you don't have to limit what you do with your money. You know why? Because you can't borrow time, but you can borrow money. And in borrowing money, if I'm not careful, before long, money starts to look kind of like this closet. Everything's so crammed in and there's just so much going on, it just doesn't seem like it's as much fun as it used to be anymore. And a lot of times in that kind of lifestyle, you find yourself going, I forgot I even have that. Have you ever been searching for something that you lost and find something else in the process? Yeah, 100 times, right? And you're like, I didn't even remember I'd had that. You totally forgot that you even owned it or had it. Because when you don't see it, you forget about it because you have so much stuff. And for today, for just a few minutes, I want to talk about how we can create some breathing room in that situation, in your financial life. Because here's the really cool thing. If you're not a Christian, if you don't believe in the whole God thing and you're just checking this out because you want to find out some good information, perfect week for you to watch here. Because everything that we're talking about with finances today, even if you're not a Christian, if you're not religious, it doesn't matter because you'll be able to benefit from it and understand what we're talking about today. So to begin our discussion, I want to tell you something that no one else is going to tell you. Nobody else is talking about this. When I tell you this, you're probably going to go, okay, I get it. Wow, that kind of makes sense. And I guess I just never thought about it like that before. And it's so good. So check this out. Here's what I want to tell you. There's a big difference between our standard of living and our quality of life. We have a little chart here to look at that shows that our standard of living and our quality of life are actually separated. They're divided on purpose because there's a big difference between them. Now, every single day, every single advertisement, every single commercial that you watch, you are told, and I'm told, that these two things are actually the same. That these two things work together. That if I raise my standard of living, I raise my quality of life. If I want better, I just buy better. If I want a nicer car, I buy a nicer car. If I want to dress better, I buy nicer clothes, I vacation better, and so on. And it's all this idea of getting bigger, better, shinier. Upgrade is a big word too. I'll upgrade what I have. And if I raise my standard of living, I'll have a better quality of life. That's what we're told. But it's absolutely not true. And I don't just say this based on some statistical research I did. I don't say it based on a book I read. I've just seen this in my entire life with every person I talk to. In over 20 years of ministry, I talked to people from all different walks of life. I've sat down and talked with millionaires and I've said, hey, what's the secret? What is it like? Because they were once not really poor, but they didn't have much money in the beginning to the point of being a millionaire. And you know what they said to me? They said, yeah, it's not stuff. Stuff doesn't bring the happiness. There's just greater pressure now, in fact. And so we buy into this idea that by raising our standard of living, we'll raise our quality of life, and it's just not true. But did you know that you can raise your standard of living with debt? It's super easy to raise it with debt, but it doesn't work that way with the quality of life. The only way you can raise the quality of life is through discipline. Now listen closely to this, because the concern I have for you and the concern that I have for myself even is we have to admit something. What we have to admit is that we like debt more than we like discipline. When it comes to your time is limited. You have a finite amount of time in your day. You have a finite amount of time in your lifetime. You have a limited number of years, days, and hours that you're alive on planet Earth. So you have to limit what you do with your time. You just have to. But here, on the debt side, you don't have to limit what you do with your money because you could go into debt. And debt is easy to get. I mean, that proves itself every day in our mail, right? I receive envelopes every day in the mail with an opportunity to get more money from Visa, MasterCard, Discover, you name it. They're giving me opportunities every day to raise my standard of living, and in the thinking, maybe it'll help me have a better, happier life. So here's where we're going with all this, and I think I can kind of feel the tension right now. I feel it through the TV screen even. I haven't even gotten to the Bible verses yet, and I feel like people are going, whoa, jeepers creepers, man, this is really like right there in our face with this, and it is. But here's the thing, if you just listen, I'm telling you, if you have to leave for the bathroom, if your electricity goes out or your internet connection drops, if there's nothing else you get out of today's message, I want you to get this right here, because this is so important. I wish someone would have gotten this information through to me way earlier in my life, because it would have made such a tremendous difference in my happiness I've had in my life. Now, if you believe in God, and if you've made God your Heavenly Father, what do you think He's more interested in when it comes to these two things? What do you think God is more interested in? Well, I think He's interested in quality of life. Because creating breathing room financially may lower your standard of living, but I promise you, it's going to raise your quality of life. I promise you. You know, salesmen, look at salesmen. Salesmen know that you're more likely to buy the less time you have to think about it. They're taught this and they understand this fact. That's why when you go to buy something, a salesman will push a little bit with act now while supplies last. Here's your opportunity. Oh, we don't know how many there'll be here. Somebody could walk in 5 minutes and buy it. It might be gone. They want to get you to do it right away because they know that if you have time to think about it, you're probably going to change your mind. Because in the back of our minds, we know that that is true, that previous slide. We know that that's true. We know that we can't increase the quality of life by simply going into debt more. And when you go into debt more and you feel that uncomfortableness, it creates a memory inside of you that says, I don't want to go back there again. And that's why we hesitate when we go to buy big purchases. There's that hesitation. So the salesman's like, just take it for the weekend. Take it for a test drive, because they know that that's going to help talk you into that. Have you ever had buyer's remorse? I certainly have. I mean, in the moment when you go to buy something, I'm good at this. I can convince myself like nobody else why I need to have something. I could talk my wife into it. I could talk my kids into it. I could talk myself into it. I really need this. Here's how it's going to help our family. Here's how it's going to benefit our life. Here's how it's going to give us better quality of life. And I can really put a great pitch together. But what happens oftentimes is a year may go by, maybe a month, maybe a week, where you find yourself going, you know what? Maybe I didn't really need that. Maybe it's not really all it was cracked up to be. Or maybe you're not even using that thing anymore. And you're going, why did I ever buy that? And hopefully you're not in a position where you get upside down in a car payment. Then you've really got buyer's remorse and regret, because now you're paying for it long after you've even used it. How many of us have stuff in our closet that we bought and we just don't even wear it anymore? Don't even realize it's there. And when you go to clean out your closet, maybe you give your stuff to Goodwill or something, you're realizing, wow, look at all this stuff that I've just forgotten I even had. How many of us are guilty of looking in our closet and saying those famous words, I have nothing to wear, right? It's just the American in us. We can't help ourselves. It's the culture we've grown up in, and it's what we've been told is that to have a great quality of life, you've got to buy, and raise your standard of living. But I've got good news. You don't have to. You can change. You can go against the current. You can go against the flow. You can be a changer in this way. You can have the amazing quality of life that you've always dreamed of. And God wants that for you too. The great news is that you decide what percentage of your income you're going to live on. You get to pick it. Nobody else picks it. You get to do that. Culture will pick it for you if you don't pick it yourself. Culture will be happy to help you pick that percentage that you're going to live off of each month. If you don't pick one, Amazon would be happy to help you pick a higher percentage. If you don't pick one, a car dealership would be happy to help you. You remember back when you got your first job? I remember back when I got my first job, and I remember it was just the quality of life I had then. And then I got married, and I think back to how much money I made. I remember that first paycheck. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. My first paycheck, I could do whatever I want to with this money. Man, the world was just your oyster, and you felt like you could do anything. You were walking on cloud nine. And then when you got married, it was like your income's doubled suddenly. Like if your spouse is working, you're both working, all of a sudden you've got more income, and we can buy nicer stuff. We can do bigger things. And so we just raise what we spend right along with what we get. But if you think back to when you're first married, when I think back to when I was first married, I didn't have everything I have now. I had a fraction of what I have now with things, but I was just as happy, if not happier. And life seemed absolutely carefree. Now, if you're in high school, or if you're in college, or you're single, and you're thinking to yourself right now, I'm not really sure I can relate a lot with this message, because Matt's kind of talking to a lot of the family, family situation, couples, and that kind of thing. But here's the thing I want you to understand. If you're listening right now, you're smart, and I'm so glad you are, because you have a chance to get this right the first time around. Where many of us older folks have messed up, you get to get it right and not make the mistakes we've made. And just imagine something for a second here. Here's something really, really cool. You have an opportunity to be smarter than your parents. I'm serious. You have a chance to be smarter than them. Now, if your parents are in the room with you right now, I just want to say, Mom, Dad, come on, chime in here. You guys can help me out with this because it's true. Every parent wants you to be smarter than them when it comes to this. Every parent wants you to see this right now because it's a regret that we all have, that we got into debt way too early in life and we spent the rest of our life paying that off. You go into your debt in your 20s and it takes until 30s and 40s sometimes to dig out of that hole you dug into in your 20s because it's so easy to do, whether it's credit cards, whether it's student loan debt. There's just so many ways. And so some of us are visual learners. I'm kind of a visual learner. And so I would like for us to put up a chart now. And this chart's going to help us kind of take a look at time and money. And so here's money. There's time. Pretty simple, right? Oh, yeah, thank you. Now, in life, as you go through life, you get older, hopefully your income is going to do this. Hopefully. That's the idea, is that your income, for you singles, 20-somethings, this is what you got to look forward to. You might be here right now, but it's just going to keep going like that. It's pretty awesome. But I also know there's some of you, maybe some of you parents, some of you older folks, watching this right now and going, that looks nice, Matt. That looks like a plane taken right off. That's awesome. But that's not how my life looks. My life's more like this. My plane didn't get off the runway. Matter of fact, I think my landing gear might be broken. Any case that you are, the point is this. The point is that, be honest. When you go back to when you first started working, you are making more than you did then. And life does get better. But for the sake of what we're talking about today, and of course, we want everybody to get into this, but hopefully your financial life is going to increase as you get older. Hopefully that's going to happen, and that's what it should happen. In an ideal world, in a breathing room world, if you get this right, if you've gotten this right, then your spending would look something like this, where your income goes up and your spending goes up, but it doesn't go up quite as fast, and there becomes a margin, a space inside of here, and this is good. We like this. We want this space here. And what happens, though, is this space fills in with something called breathing room. And as breathing room gets built into the space, that's the next slide we have here. It's incredible because that gives us peace. That gives us tranquility. That gives us a quality of life where it's like, breathing room. That's what I want. It's bliss. It's like, look at how much we've spent and look how much we made. It's all good. And here's the thing. Notice I didn't put a dollar amount in here. There's no specific dollar amount saying, okay, at this point, it's going to be this much money or, $30,000, $50,000. I didn't do that on purpose because here's a very important point to get here. Happiness is not found in how much you make. Happiness is found in how you manage what you have. I'll say that again. Happiness is found in how you manage what you have, not in how much you make. Now, with breathing room, you'll find yourself saying things like, hey, I think we can take a better vacation this year. Hey, I think we could pay for college a little bit at a time instead of maybe going into debt. I know lots of people who have done that, and I think it's just incredible if they thought of that idea of just paying for it a little bit at a time and not having a great big debt and a great big loan at the end of it all. And here's what I know about you. You want this. You want this breathing room. Everybody that has a brain wants this. You want the peace. You want the space. You want to have extra. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're an atheist, Republican, Democrat, we all want to have breathing room. You know what else happens in there? You're more attractive when your life is within those places. You are. Because when you're at peace, you're more attractive. When you don't have stress and stressing yourself out because you're too busy, too much going on or too much to pay for, your countenance is different and you're a more attractive person. So for those of you, again, in your 20s or if you're in high school, there's a secret to becoming beautiful. Find breathing room. You'll sleep better. I talk to people all the time who tell me, man, I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. Well, it's usually because there's stuff on your mind, right? If you've got stuff on your mind, it's hard to sleep. And stuff's on your mind because you've got probably too much crammed in. You drive slower when you have breathing room. You're able to pray longer than 5 minutes. And you find yourself when you pray, you're able to focus and concentrate. When you have breathing room, you become more generous. And not just generous with your money, but with your time too. So we know one thing here through all this, that life is better with breathing room. Now I want you to take a deep breath with me because the next part's going to be a little hard to hear. Okay? You know when you're at the doctor and you're about to get a shot, maybe it's a nurse that gives you the shot. And by the way, my wife, whenever I do get shots, she likes to be the one to give that to me. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but there's something, she just likes to give me the shot. I don't know. But you know that moment where the doctor or the nurse says to you, this could sting a little bit, and they might even do like, okay, I'm going to count 1, 2. Yeah, okay, thank you. You get that shot. Well, that's how this is going to be for just a second. We're going to get a little dose of financial reality. Because here's where most Americans are with our next chart. This is where we're actually at, most Americans. And you can't even squeeze a hair between these two lines because they're right up side to side close. That's the reality of where we are. Remember, as a kid, getting like 50 cents from your parents to go spend in the store. And I remember as a kid, it's like, oh, okay, when I left that store, I didn't walk out spending 45 cents. I didn't walk out spending 40 cents or even 49 cents. I walked out spending every penny I was given because I didn't know when it would be until I got money again. I mean, who knows? So I'm going to buy as much candy or toy or whatever I can buy and stock up, man, because who knows when we'll have this money again. The problem is, as adults, we keep doing this. If I make $30,000 a year, I'm going to spend it. That's just what we do. This says if I make $30,000, I spend $30,000. And in some horrible cases, we go way above that. And that's not good. But the first conversation you have after you've gotten a raise, what is it? You know what it is. You come home, you tell your spouse, I got a raise. The first conversation is, what are we going to do with it? Because now that this went up, well, that means the red line's got to go up too. The first thing you think about is, okay, what are we going to buy now? What shall we do? And if you don't believe me, let me ask you, what did you do with your stimulus check that you just got in the mail? Hopefully you got one in the mail. But that's the idea, though. We think, oh, what are we going to do with that? What can we do next? What's on our list? Because inherently, we just keep these two tight, side to side. And have you ever heard companies talk about, I want to help you build your credit score, boost your credit score. That's what they say. Commercials on TV. We can boost your credit score. Send us money for this. Well, I know the secret. I know how to boost your credit score. And I'm not charging a penny for it. I'm going to tell you right now how to boost your credit score and not charge you a dime. This is free advice. This is probably worth watching the whole message for this part right here, if nothing else, okay? Here it is. If you want to boost your credit score, then you need to divide income and spending and have breathing room. You need to spend less than you make, and your credit score will increase. It's true. That's how you do it. I've done it in my own life, and I've seen it firsthand. It's amazing. Because when we go into debt, when we spend our money like this, we become a slave. Because it's like having chains around your neck. You've purchased and you've borrowed your way into slavery. When your personal finances look like this, banks and credit become kind of like masters. And you begin to hate them. You get a letter from them in the mail and your blood pressure rises and you're like, oh, what do they want now? And you begin to hate them and you're not even sure who them are, but they don't know who you are. They don't even know your name. You're just another number in a big file to them. But you become almost like a slave in that debting relationship. And in most cases, we've spent and we've borrowed our own way right into slavery. Now, who would do that intentionally? No one would do that intentionally. Not any of us. But we feel the pressure. It's our society around us. We feel the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. We feel the pressure to have the best, to have better. Well, they got that. I should get that. I make as much money as they make. I should have that. And this crazy thought comes into our head that we should be at some level or place with what we have. And you find yourself saying no to things that you wish you didn't have to say no to because there's nothing left over to spend. You can't fund your dreams any longer when you're like this. You can't fund your children's dreams. You become a slave to a weekly paycheck. You're desperate. You got to have that weekly check because if you miss one weekly check, the whole ship sinks in your financial life. Now here's the good news though. Jesus has advice that helps us. A couple thousand years ago, Jesus talked about this very subject, believe it or not. It's like Jesus could see ahead. He predicted modern day financial stress. And Jesus, 2,000 years, tells a parable. He tells it in Luke 16. He tells this fascinating parable about money, about a manager who gets himself into trouble. I wish we had time to tell the whole parable, but I just don't. I'm going to kind of fast forward to the end of the parable about money, where Jesus draws a conclusion. And here's what Jesus said in Luke 16, verse 13. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Nobody can serve two masters. Ever work for a company where you felt like that? Where you weren't really sure who was in charge? Like somebody may have had the title, but there's really more than one person who could fire you or who could tell you what to do. And you find yourself torn between these two people's instructions, orders, and demands. And it's not a good place to be. You hate it. And Jesus said, I know. I know what that's like. No one can serve two masters. Maybe growing up, you had a mom and a dad where dad would say one thing, mom says another. Maybe that's going on right now in your life where you're living with your parents and one says do it one way, one says do it another way. Perhaps you come from a divorced home where one parent did things this way and one did it differently. They had a whole different set of rules, whole different lifestyle for you, where maybe you found yourself saying, I love going to dad's house. He lets me stay up as late as I want. And then I despise going to mom's house. She makes me go to bed at a certain time. It's got to be like that. This is what happens to you. And Jesus said, I understand that. You can't serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one, you'll find yourself hating things they do, or you'll love the other. You might find yourself saying, I like this boss. This boss gets me. This boss gets my job. They get what's going on. But the other boss, I hate the other boss. They don't have a clue of how this company works. They don't have a clue of what's going on in my department. You find yourself liking the one, despising the other. Jesus says to us, if you ever get in that situation where you're in a tug of war and you've got two different people telling you what to do, you're going to pick a side. Jesus is teaching this amazing principle. And in this parable where he was teaching it about a money manager, the lender, going into this parable, at this next part, it looks like he changes the subject. It actually looks like he's doing something completely like left field. But what he does is Jesus goes straight to the heart of the matter. It's as if he fast forwards 2,000 years into present day time and talks right to you and talks right to me with plain language that we clearly will understand and not miss. Here's what he says in the rest of verse 13. You cannot serve both God and you're wondering, what is it that could possibly be here? Oh, maybe it's Satan. I mean, obviously, the opposite of God is Satan, right? So you can't serve both God and Satan. That would make sense. Or sin. Okay, that makes total sense. Can't serve God and can't serve sin both. I get that. But what he says here blows me away. He says, you cannot serve both God and money. Jesus said that. It's like he knew. Now, this is important if you're a Christ follower. If you've chosen to be a follower of Jesus Christ, if you've found yourself in a position where you've made money your master, maybe you traded, borrowed, spent your way into this place where money just has you, where you've got nothing left over every month. I mean, everything you've got just goes to something. If you find yourself so in this position financially that you can't do what Jesus says financially, then you find yourself with a horrible pit in your stomach. I know that feeling. I've been there. That horrible feeling when the pastor gets up in front of the church and says, hey, will you give towards this? We really need to help this family, or we need to help this project. And if everybody could just give a little bit of money towards this, we'll make it happen. And that horrible feeling in your stomach when you realize, I don't have anything to give. I can't do it. And that's horrible. It feels awful inside. And I know how that feels. I've felt that before. Now, on one hand, you've got Jesus saying, be generous. On the other hand, you've got your finances. Your finances, this is what you've got left over is nothing. There's nothing left over. You've paid your bills. You've paid your mortgage. You've paid everything that need to be paid, but there's nothing. It's all been spent. And between here, you find yourself in this place, like we saw on the chart earlier, where there's nothing left. It's so tight, you can't even make any extra money happen because you've spent it all. And when you hear somebody say something like, wow, I got a raise and I'm doing great financially, it can make you angry. It can make you a little bit upset, even jealous maybe if you're honest. And we've got nobody to blame but ourselves when we've gotten in that position. Because it's us, we're the ones who choose what percentage we're going to live on. We're the ones who chose to spend $20,000 for that car instead of $10,000 when we could have bought a cheaper car for $10,000. We decided to buy that house for $200,000 because we were told that's what we could afford. And I hate that word afford, by the way. Hate that word because that word afford leads to this whole philosophy that we're talking about where you'll have happiness if you buy what you can afford, which is, they'll tell you, you go to get a home mortgage, they'll tell you what you can afford. But that's usually too high. Even though it's percentage, it's still too high to give you good amount of breathing room. And so you find yourself in this position and you're like, it's me. I know I've done that. I haven't saved. I haven't been careful enough. I've done what everybody else is doing around me. I mean, it's what everybody's doing, but there's this tension inside. And if you're honest, you'll say, man, I love being in church, especially when we can meet together. I love singing the songs. I love the messages, most of the messages anyways. I love being there. And I love, the messages where you challenge me and it sounds good. But, Matt, if I'm honest, when it comes right down to it, most of the time, I just can't do what you're asking me to do. And if you're in that place, it's not a good place as far as it tears you up inside. It's tearing you apart from one side to the other. And the whole New Testament, it talks about a bottom line of one another, love one another, serve one another, be compassionate to one another. Did you know that when your financial world is out of order and you don't do very much one anothering then? Because you can't. Remember back to when I did the message at 2/2/20 when we had our launch service for Silver Creek Church. In that message, I said that it's a horrible feeling when we see an injustice in the world and we do nothing about it. And we've all been there and known how that felt, to have seen something going on that we probably should do something about and we didn't do something. That brings great regret. I know Sheriff Chris Swanson pretty well. He and I have interacted a lot over the years, and we've texted back and forth with little messages here and there about what's going on, keeping up. And he oversees a phenomenal department with the Genesee County Sheriffs where they are trying to eliminate sex trafficking in Genesee County. And what if I told you this? Let's just imagine for a moment. What if I told you that right before this message, like just 20 minutes ago, I got a text message from Sheriff Swanson. And he said to me, Matt, we've just busted one of the biggest sex rings we've ever come across in Genesee County. Right now, I've got 48 children in the back of a stake truck. That's all we could do because it was last minute. Their age range is from 4 to 14. And we need something for these kids right now. We need to get them a meal. We need to get them some new clothes. We need to find them a place to stay for at least one night, temporary housing. We just need some help. Can your church help? And if you are in the position where and I reached out to you all right now and I said, guys, we got to help. Here's a situation where there's kids right now in the back of a steak truck that don't know what's going on and need some loving, and they need some practical things. So can everybody chip in? Can everybody make this happen? And here's where it would feel awful for you, is if you're in a position where you'd already given your financial gift to the church for that month. You know, you've done that. You've paid your mortgage. All the bills are paid, but there's nothing left. That's a horrible feeling to be in right then and there. To know that here is something where I need to help. I can help. I should help, but I can't because I've kept my spending and my income in the exact same place, and I've got no breathing room. I've got no margin. That feeling's horrible. For some of us, we don't know where the money goes. Like, in other words, if I ask you, well, how much did you spend last month versus making, you're like, I don't know. Well, that's not good. That's a bad place to be. I think that could be even a little worse. So you need to find out where your money's going, because you know what? It's the little foxes that spoil the vine. Solomon said that. Solomon spoke of the little foxes spoil the vine. And what he meant by that is that it's not the big purchases that'll get you. Because you know when you make a big purchase, like you're thinking about that more. It's all the little ones that add up. It's the little foxes that add up and become big. All the little purchases all month long add up to something big at the end of the month. And so you won't know how your spending is until you track it. You need to track your spending for at least a month, if not 2. That life where you create breathing room is wonderful. But the other life where you work every day to just maintain a lifestyle, you have no future plans of freedom coming, like there's nothing to look forward to, there's no strategy, there's no plan to stop this rat race that you're in. You know what it's going to do to the inside of you? It's going to slowly kill you from the inside because there's no hope for a great future. But what if, just imagine with me for a second, what if we made the decision, starting today, to do this, to track how much money we're spending, and to start this way of, you know what, I'm going to create breathing room in my life. What if we did that? What if we followed the advice that Jesus gave? And if you want to do that, I've got 5 steps. I know, right? I've created 5 steps to easy breathing room. If at the end of these 5 steps, if you feel gypped, I'll give you your money back, I promise, okay? So here's the 5 steps. Number 1, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to decide what you're going to do. You got to decide. That's the number 1. You have to decide. I know that's not very complicated, but you've got to decide. It's like, in other words, this is where most people don't, by the way, this is where most people don't make it past the starting gate. Most people they'll listen to this message and they'll go on with their day, and by the middle of the week, you've forgotten all about it. You've got to decide, and that takes purpose, intent, and it takes you just saying, I'm going to do it. So just make the point, write it down, take notes if you have to. Just do it, because working out, it's kind of like working out. Working out, the challenge of working out isn't like knowing how to do it. Nobody ever says, well, I don't go for walks and exercise because I'm not really sure how. Nobody ever says that. It's not that at all. It's the discipline. The discipline is where it's hard. Discipline is necessary for you to have a better quality of life, remember. I mean, seriously, this is the step where most people fail. We fail because we never, ever do anything, and we just put it on a shelf and forget about it. Number 2, set a breathing room goal. Yeah. What do you want that goal to look like? And here's what I mean. I've got a chart here to look at. If we can look at that really quick. This is that breathing room space that we create between the 2. So how much do you want to create in your breathing room? I mean, it's up to you. You get to pick this number. Do you want to go for a 10%? Maybe you want to go for 20%. I personally would like to see mine at 50%. I'm still working on that to get there. But if you're married, this is something you have to do together. You and your spouse have got to get together on this. And I know it can be hard sometimes, but go for a walk. Take the cell phones, leave them at home, no distractions. Make sure you've got some time without the kids. I know in this current situation that's kind of hard to do sometimes, but if you can, maybe if the kids take a nap or here, watch a movie, and you could go in the next room and sit down and have a talk. You need to do this together. It's very important. What would you like it to be? And set a goal. Say, hey, I'd like to see however long it takes for us to get to this goal. Number 3 is save all your receipts for a whole month. And in some cases, I might even suggest 2. I did this before. It was several years ago. And I did 1 month, and I felt like it wasn't a good enough read, so I did 2 months. And in 2 months, I got a really clear picture of exactly what we were spending on. And we made a lot of changes in what we spent money on because there was a lot of little things that added up. And it eliminated all of our breathing room. Everybody should know where your money's going. If you don't know where your money's going, you've got to know this. This is one of the most important principles. And even if you're not a religious person, again, if you're not a Christian, this is just good advice. But if you are a Christian, you kind of have to do this because Jesus is telling us that we're responsible. He's given us the opportunity to make a difference in this world. We're a lot of this stuff. We kind of believe it all belongs to God anyways, don't we? And so this is what we're giving care over. We're managers of the money, remember. We're not owners, we're managers. And so what will we do with this money while we're alive on this earth? Because we're dead and gone, the money's still going to be around. What is it going to do? How is it going to keep working for us or for someone else? If you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, Jesus says it over and over again, that we'll give an account for how we lived our lives. And we'll give an account for how we handled our finances. So you need to know what you're spending each and every month. Number 4, set priorities, and you have to just say no to some things. It's not fun, I know, but you just got to say no to some things. And cutting spending is not fun. But again, it's why you want to track 1 or 2 months. Track 1 or 2 months, it'll let you know what you're spending your money on. And there's one more piece of free advice I could give, and this just gives you a little bit of insight. Did you know that what I want is better than what I owe? It's better to be in the position of I want than I owe. So if you're thinking about buying something, just remember, it's better to still be in a place of wanting than owing, because owing is no fun. I want the car, but it's better than saying I want the car than I owe for the car. I want that house, but I'd rather say I want it than have to owe on it. I want that pair of shoes. I can wait till later. And you get the point. I want is better than I owe. And number 5, this is it. Implement a debt elimination plan. Yes, sirree. I am not a financial planner. So I have no good advice to give you on this, but I know who does. Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey wrote a book called Financial Peace Revisited. Check that book out. That book's got all the advice you basically heard me sharing now and more. If you can't afford that book, or if you say, well, I don't know, I just can't do it, I've got another plan. Go to the bookstore, pull it off the shelf, open up to page 67 in chapter 8, and just read chapter 8. That'll help get you started, okay? So there's a way to make this happen, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, as long as it's legal, you've got to get to where you have breathing room. It's absolutely necessary for your happiness in life. Now, when Rachel and I decided that we would start Silver Creek Church, that was a couple years ago. And I knew then that there's different ways of doing it. One way is you can fundraise for sometimes a year or even longer, fundraise for personal finances. So in other words, I'd go around to asking people, okay, will you support Rachel and I to take a year of our life to start a church? Because in the first year of a church, it just can't afford to really fund the salary of a lead pastor. That's just how it goes because you're building a ministry. And I chose instead of that to do all the fundraising for the church and to kind of fast track things a little bit. And the reason I was able to do that was because many years ago, Rachel and I read this principle from Dave Ramsey and we began applying it. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't, hey, we started and 2 months later, life is bliss. It took us years to get to the place now where we have no debt except for our house, our mortgage. And even the mortgage we have on our house is really small compared to what they said we could afford. They said we could afford this number, and I cut that down probably 30% from what they said because I'm like, I want to have breathing room. Once you get to this place of what I experience right now, guys, I am telling you, it is so amazing. When you get to a place where you have breathing room, you'll never go back. You'll never go back to it because it's so freeing. It's so peaceful. It's so amazing to be able to help people when they need help and not have to worry about living check to check every single week. It's incredible. So we made that decision long ago, and it's changed our lives in a positive way. We wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things that we're doing now to help start this church had we not applied these principles. We wouldn't have been able to help the people that we've helped financially if we hadn't applied these principles. So did you know that the chief competitor for your heart is not the devil? The chief competitor for your heart is stuff. It's stuff. And Jesus, 2,000 years ago, knew that. And that's why he said, I didn't come to die on the cross just for your sin so that you could make me your Lord in heaven. And Jesus is saying this, I want to be the Lord of your life on earth. I want you to have an amazing quality of life on earth. Not just to someday be with me in heaven, but right now for you to have an amazing life on earth. That's the purpose of your life. Which means creating breathing room financially. But did you know that if you create breathing room financially, it may lower your standard of living, but it's going to raise your quality of life. Creating breathing room financially may lower your standard of living, but I promise you, it's going to raise your quality of life. That's why we say that life is better with breathing room. So let's decide right now. Let's do it right now. Set a goal, track your money, cut your spending, get out of debt. Become a sincere follower of your Savior, Jesus Christ, because there's no better feeling in the world. Don't you want to be in that place where you no longer see opportunities for other people and you think, oh, I'd like to make a difference, but I just can't. I'm doing all I can right now. And instead of that, what if with tears of joy in your eyes, you're able to look at that person and say, I can help. I can help you. And instead of tears of joy and hope in your eyes, you're like, I want to be the help for you. You step forward out of the crowd of onlookers and gawkers and say, I can help. Too many times the world has cried out asking for a hero. Too many times the world around us has said, we need a hero. And too many times we as Christians have said, Jesus, are you hearing this? They said, they need you. Jesus, they need a hero. Jesus, they need you. And Jesus is looking at us and saying, that's why I put you there. That's why you are there, is for you to be that person. I've entrusted you with everything you need to make a difference. Now, what are you going to do with it? And you guys, it all starts with one thing. It all starts with creating breathing room. We've got to have room to breathe financially to be able to help others truly and make a difference and not be worried and not lose our own joy and our own peace just trying to get through the day and trying to live check to check. God wants more for you than that. Will you pray with me now? Heavenly Father, I thank you for the words that you've given to us. I thank you that you've taught us this, that you've thought this through for our benefit, for our sake. You've given us freedom of choice. You've given us the opportunity to be the manager of our own life, the manager of our own finances. But Lord, you've also given us the secrets, the tips to happiness. And Lord, will you help us? Will you help us to have the courage, to have the resolution, the fortitude to, right after this message, to sit down and say, we're going to do this. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make a goal. Help us with that, Lord, as we do that this week. It's in your name we pray. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for being with us, guys. I look forward to seeing you next week for Mother's Day. I'll be having some special guests with me, and I just can't wait to see you then. Have a great week. God bless you.